Fair go Australia. What's going on with the crime in Victoria? I think this is directed to the amount of youth crime that's been going on. young blokes running around with machetes and breaking into houses, and then within a month or two they're bailed and they're out again doing the same thing. So they're trying to bring in some legislation to harden up, so these guys can't just it's like a revolving door. I worked in youth justice for about 15 years and it is a revolving door. What we really need is this apparently they're going to, in short, there was 200 people rallying to saying the new laws coming in are a bit over the top, and the government says its proposed bail laws are the toughest in the country. In other words, you toughen up the laws and that fixes things, which is absolute bullshit. What they should have, especially for young offenders, is second time they're in, they get sent off and they have to work somewhere, like a farm or I think Germany's got a thing where they, repeat offenders, they send them overseas to help build communities and stuff like that. And you might say, well, that's a hell of a lot more expensive than, putting these guys in prison, locking them up and just feeding them every day. Well, that might be the case, but in the long run, it's going to save money in all the expense that we're using to prevent crime. I'm not against hardening up the laws on this sort of thing, but locking people up without proper programs is just bullshit. It's just, again, it's another knee-jerk reaction by a government, which I detest. I'm not a big fan of governments, period, but I know you do have to have them to some capacity. But just putting a band-aid saying, oh well, we'll just make the laws harsher, the next time they go in for 6 months instead of 3 months, or they, or 12 months. That's locking people up. A lot of times these things are related to families, things that they've gone through overseas. Young people, they commit crimes for a reason. They're not always, a lot of it's could be medical issues, it could be gang related. They're looking to identify with something. And don't get me wrong, I am for stronger laws. There needs to be a message out there to say, if you do this sort of stuff, if you're with a gang and you're thinking of breaking into someone's house tonight, think again, because the law now is, we could be locked up for 12 months, not 3 months. So I can see that side of it, but we need proper programs for these kids and young men to go into, to get them working. Even if it costs, 50,000. Maybe you got to have, one guy or one woman or whatever looking after 3 or 4 people, young people on a farm. That's the way to go. I don't think all this is it might reduce the crime a little bit, but basically when people, I know from experience, when they go into these places, they call it the big house, when they move from juvenile to the big house, a lot of them, it doesn't do anything for them. They again, in those places, the government has very little input as to the well-being and rehabilitation of these young people. Anyway, that's just my view, and I think the laws do need to be tightened up for sure, but let's not just use a band-aid. Let's put a bit of ointment in there and try and heal rather than bash with a sledgehammer. Okay, that's my Fair Go Australia for today, and something to think about it. Yeah.